For a comedy show, The Simpsons is a surprisingly weighty affair. Among the clownish caricatures and everyday moronic behaviour of Springfield's band of personified stereotypes, there have been some moments that have gone straight for the tear ducts rather than the funny bone. For all the show might now have slid into a disappointing mess of catchphrases and celebrity guest spots, that shouldn't detract from the fact that, at its peak, nothing on television dealt with complex issues quite as profoundly as The Simpsons. From gut-wrenching tragedy to uplifting absolution, I'm What Culture's own Adam Cleary, and these are 10 utterly heartbreaking Simpsons moments you'll never forget. Number 10. Homer's sacrifice. One of the most successful and largely unspoken jokes of The Simpsons is that Homer is very, very unworthy of his entire family, and he can't even see it. Granted, that's a slightly problematic approach, but it does make the moments where his selflessness comes into focus that much more impactful. In And Maggie Makes 3, Homer realises his dream to work in a bowling alley, but on the realisation that Marge is pregnant again, he can't support his family on those wages and is forced to go back to the power plant. Worse still, he's forced to have a plaque over his workstation carrying the demotivational message, "Don't forget, you're here forever." The heartbreaking sacrifice is emotional enough, but the payoff that he has covered the plaque with photos of Maggie to leave the message reading simply, "Do it for her," is... Oh boy, this is going to be a really long list. Number 9. Maggie loves Marge. Another moment that hinges on little Maggie Simpson here, and this time on her importance to Marge. In the 7th season episode Home Sweet Home Diddly Dum Doodly, the Simpson children are taken away when a series of unfortunate events leads to them looking like they've been neglected. They end up in the care of the Flanders, which naturally upsets Bart and Lisa as they are subjected to Ned's rigorously bland lifestyle, but Maggie thrives on the added attention given to her and is torn between her old life and her new. That is right until Marge appears, of course, because there is nothing quite like that love which exists between mother and child. All saccharine sentimentality aside, it's a very, very touching moment. Number 8. Homer dies. When Homer accidentally consumes some poisoned blowfish, he is given 22 hours to live and thus embarks on a brief journey of self-realisation and attempts to rifle through a sort of bucket list. The most touching moment comes with Homer's final acceptance when he creeps around the house, silently saying goodbye to each sleeping member of his family before retiring to listen to an audiobook of the Bible and wait for death. He doesn't die, obviously, but that still doesn't steal any of the weight or the emotion from the moment. Number 7. Lisa's first word. The many flashback and flash forward episodes we've seen in The Simpsons might feel like fillers to some, but they are often the source of the best revelations. In Lisa's first word, Homer and Marge tell the story of how Bart hated Lisa when she was born and vowed to run away right up until Lisa says her first word, Bart. It is a very sweet episode in its own right, but this moment crucially adds something we hadn't yet seen between Bart and Lisa, this touching undercurrent to the usual conflict of their relationship. Number 6. Maude. There have been a number of deaths in The Simpsons, but the death of Maude Flanders was, at the time, the most devastating. The event itself was a particularly shocking moment in The Simpsons' history, since up until this point the only deaths we'd witnessed were off-screen or mostly unimportant. But Maude, at the time, was a key character, and we got to see her death actually happen. The effect on Ned was profound. It forced him to question his normally unshakable faith as he wandered around trying to figure out how he could possibly cope. Sadly, it wouldn't be the last time the character was forced to go through all that. Number 5. Barney's Film. When the Springfield Film Festival comes to town, Barney Gumble wows the audience and judges alike with his unfortunately named short film, Pocahontas, which shows a rare self-awareness from the alcoholic fool. Heavily referencing the events of the Lost Weekend, the film shows how aware of his condition Barney actually is and transforms him from a bumbling idiot to a tragic figure. While it's not even a key part of the episode, it marked Barney's character with pathos for the rest of the show's run. Of course, the comic payoff somewhat derails the emotional impact of the moment, but on its own terms, the short is beautiful and haunting. Number 4. Lisa and the Whale. It often feels like Lisa Simpson is trapped in a perpetual loop of disappointing revelations. The problem is, you see, that she's an idealist, which is pretty much the worst thing to be in the entire world, never mind Springfield. In The Squirt and the Whale, Lisa is treated to the devastating realization that no matter the strength of her will or the force of her idealistic convictions, sometimes life is harsh. When Bluella the whale washes up on Springfield Beach, Lisa fantasizes about saving her, but on her inevitable death, she's absolutely distraught and overcome with a crippling sense of hopelessness. Despite her best efforts, she was unable to do something positive for the whale or her children, and you can't ignore the allegorical implications that come with that helplessness. Number 3. Lisa's substitute. Few guest appearances in The Simpsons have been as successful or as engaging as Dustin Hoffman's performance as the substitute teacher, Mr. Bergstrom. At the end of the episode, he reveals he must move on, and Lisa, so desperate for a positive role model in her life, is devastated. As he sets off to leave, Lisa rushes to the train station to catch him and confesses the impact his departure will have on her. His response is both heartwarming and heartbreaking at the exact same time. His response is to hand her a note telling her that it contains all she needs to know to get through the rest of her life. She opens it and it reads simply, "You are Lisa Simpson." God, are we nearly finished yet? I'm in bits here. Number 2. Mother Simpson. Look, Homer is not the world's greatest anything, but he's especially not the world's greatest son. His relationship with his father is tempestuous at best and flat-out abusive at worst. But his mother, as mothers tend to do, brings out the best in him. He finally has a validating, loving parent, but sadly it doesn't last, and Mona Simpson is recognised as a wanted fugitive, and no sooner is she back in Homer's life is she forced to flee again. The heartfelt goodbye between Mona and her son, as well as the ominous promise that they may never see each other again, is remarkably touching, as is the revelation earlier that Homer thinks she left simply because he was a horrible son that no mother would ever want. In all seriousness, if you are lucky enough to still have your mother in your life, call her. Number 1. Bart's message to Mrs. Krabappel. How could we end anywhere else? With Marcia Wallace's death, the show was robbed of one of its finest vocal performers and one of its most enduring characters in Mrs. Krabappel. She has gone through hell several times as Bart's nemesis, but just as Batman needs the Joker, the pair were essential to one another, and the image of him saying goodbye in the opening credits compounds exactly what we all suspect about the hole left in her wake. There is something inexpressibly tragic about the look on Bart's face and the simplicity of his message that says 1,000,000 times more than any long tribute show ever could have. The tragic death adds extra weight to already important and emotionally devastating moments like the climax of Bart Gets an F, which reinforced that underneath all of the spiteful jibing and conniving, Bart and the show as a whole needed Mrs. Krabappel. We all still miss you, Mrs. K. So, Christ, that was hard work. Did I miss anything out? Let me know in the comments and I'll maybe read them when I've pulled myself together. As ever, please do like, share and subscribe. I've been Adam from WhatCulture.com, and if you pause this video, you can actually pinpoint the exact second when my heart rips in two. Well, would you look at that? You got all the way to the end of the video, and your mother said you'd amount to nothing. What are the chances? While you're here, why not watch one of our other many, possibly quite good channels, or watch another video which will be largely in the same vein as the quality content you've just endured. Go on then.